Are you someone who has been previously married and you are getting ready to be married again with kids? Maybe you lost your spouse to an untimely death, or maybe you got divorced and a failed marriage, and you found yourself to be single again, and you've been dating again, stress again.
Hmm.
And you and your significant other are ready to talk about getting married again. You may think that you know for certain that you are going to figure it out this time. Marriage didn't work last time. We're going to figure it out. We got it right this time, right?
Hmm.
You're going to have the family for you and your kids. My kids are going to have the family they need. They're not going to have that failed marriage, dysfunctional family. This time it's going to be right. You and me, we're going to get married. It's going to be right. Right?
Today we're going to talk about getting married again, especially when you bring kids into the new family dynamic. It's not as easy as you think. We'll talk about how you can better prepare you, your future spouse, and your kids, your new blended family, to be ready for this new adventure. Finally, we will discuss that when you get married again, God has ordained your marriage covenant, and He expects you to become united as one flesh. In this episode, we will discuss how to become a successful blended family.
Ron Deal, Family Life Blended, reports that fewer than 25% of couples get married again, second time or more. Fewer than 25% of couples get married again, forming a blended family, get married again with kids. Only 25% receive premarital counseling or education.
Most couples who get married again and form these blended families fail to sit down with each other and discuss these important things that would affect their new life and marriage. For this episode, we're going to discuss the things that should be considered, talked about, planned out before you get married again and form a blended family.
We didn't really have much counseling either, did we? No.
Nope, none.
We didn't really think about it. And the people marrying us, they're like, oh, yeah, you guys are going to be great. Here's a couple of books. Read that if you want to. Yeah. First of all, what is a blended family? If you haven't been following us, you're like this, you just figured this out. Hey, I just found these two people talking about blended family. This is what it's all about. Some use the term step family instead of blended family. A blended family is basically the family unit formed when a man and a woman get remarried and bring their own kids into a blended family unit. It could be two people coming from a divorce, or a man that's been divorced and a woman that hasn't been married. Maybe she has kids, maybe she doesn't. Or a woman that lost her husband and married again, or a man that lost his wife. There's different combinations. As a matter of fact, Ron Deal from Family Life Blended states that there are 67 blended step family combinations. Can you imagine that?
Ready? I can't even begin to come up with that many.
We had probably the easiest one. Lori and I had a relatively simple combination. Our family. She had 3 boys from her previous marriage, and I had 0 from my previous marriage. So that kind of helped. It was easier for me to jump in there and say, okay, these are going to be my boys. I know they're not. I'm not the real dad, but I can take on that role. And her kids in our new family don't have to worry about the civil rivalry. Her kids and my kids fighting. They didn't have any of that. Some blended families, they don't have that luxury.
Mm.
Uh, some families where the husband and the wife are younger than us, we're kind of past having baby age anyway.
Yeah.
They may have his kids, her kids, and then they may have their own kids in the marriage. Another.
You remember that movie back, I guess it's in the 70s, and it's Yours, Mine, and Ours?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have that.
Speaking of that, kind of off script, but you talking about moving. You know what really kind of did it for marriage? and staying married and getting divorced and doing all that movie, the TV show, The Brady Bunch. Nobody watched it. We all that's a good show, but you know what? I don't know what happened to the Brady man and the woman. I don't know how their circumstances led them to be single. It doesn't say. The show. I don't know if the show ever really says it. Maybe if anybody
I don't
knows, let me know.
remember.
But they give you the impression that two people get married again and they'll bring their kids together and it's just gonna be great. Eh. Yeah. Um. So we listed some things that you need to do or you need to consider doing before you get married again. So you're at that point now, you get married again. Found the right one. There she is. There he is. And we're gonna get married. She's got kids. Maybe you got kids. We're gonna make it work. I would caution you that there's some things you need to consider. So we're gonna list that. Lori, you take the first one.
First thing I think that needs to be tackled is how you and your spouse plan to integrate your family. How do you plan to bring your kids from your previous marriage into a cohesive blended family unit? You might start by having some blended family outings before the wedding date. And this is something that might seem like a no-brainer, but it's also has a lot of varying factors. Like how long did you know each other before you started dating? Are you complete strangers when you started dating? And we talked about, I think, in the last video that you don't want to bring your kids into the relationship if we went to church together, so we already kind of knew each other, so that situation was a little bit different. But if you just met somebody brand new and you don't want to bring your kids into it right away, so you want to make sure that relationship is going to stand before you bring your kids into it. So when you're confident that it's going to last, then you want to bring your kids into it. You want to make sure that you have plenty of time to spend together and get to know each other. That seems kind of like a no-brainer, but you don't
Work the bugs out.
Yeah, you don't want to bring them in too soon, because then if the relationship doesn't work out, then your kids are
Yeah.
going to be traumatized all over again. And,
Yep.
So that's just every situation is different with that.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to let the kids get to know each other, maybe build a relationship base before they move in together, obviously. So hopefully spending time together before you get married, the kids can learn from each other, maybe establish some skills that enables them to get along better before they become a family unit. The new step parent or parent can get a chance to build a relationship with the other spouse's kids. And keep in mind, everyone is not going to get along always. Even if you're not a blended family, you don't always get along. So that's just kind of a given.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's going to take time, it's going to take effort, it's going to take patience from all sides. Don't just get married and just throw everybody in there and expect it to work out. And that's one thing Ron Deal talks about in his book is you just can't throw everybody in there and then expect it to work.
Right. Right. Yeah, you can. And it kind of brings me into my second point, but they kind of go together, but to kind of piggyback on what she said. You can't just date and say, okay, we're gonna get married, and then they go to the park a couple times with your kid, or go on an outing or something, and hey, they got together and did stuff together, so they're good. You need to sit down together a few times to talk about this. So I'm marrying your mom, she's marrying your dad. Y'all gonna live together. What do you think about that? Well, I don't like that. I don't like the way she does this. I don't like the way he does that. They need to get that out in the open. Talk about it. Well, how are we going to deal with that? We need to work through that. You don't want to wait until you've been married 6 months and then the kids are just wreaking havoc, and it takes a toll on your marriage. And next thing you know, you're single again.
Well, that's something, that we learned several years later, I guess, that the marriage comes first. So once you're married, your marriage relationship comes first before the kids. And so because your kids need to see you in a secure relationship. They don't need to be worried about, being left again or having to go through that again. So that's no matter what's going on with the kids, you can't you can't side with your biological kids, and vice versa. You have to be, God is number one, obviously, but then you have to be next.
Mm-hmm.
Your relationship has to be solid, so the kids feel that there's security in the marriage.
And one of the problem with churches, Christian teaching, is that they don't see remarriage as something that we need to discuss. They have a marriage and don't get divorced.
Mhm.
And that's it. Well, what if you've been divorced? Don't get divorced. Okay, we've been divorced. What now? What next? Uh, then
We're just not gonna talk about it.
they don't want to talk about it. They just want to say, well, you know, you're married. You got to honor that marriage covenant and don't get divorced. So, look, so if you've been remarried, you still need to honor that same marriage covenant. The same principles apply, like we talk about in our marriage videos. We like to use Ephesians chapter 5, 22 to 33 as our guide. Christ is the head of the man, like Christ is the head of the church. And you got Christ, and then the man, and then the wife. I mean, you got a problem with that.
Mm-mm.
And even in second marriage, still Christ is first. If you didn't get it right the first time, okay, we're gonna get it right. We're gonna put Christ first, and then I'm gonna lead you, and you're gonna help me. You're gonna follow along, and that's still a principle.
Yep.
Okay, so that leads to number 2: seek out marriage counseling. And that's where these things that we're telling you right now are the things that you should be getting from premarital counseling. And don't use the assumption, well, I've already had it once the first time. I let go the first time. I don't want to look. I don't want to be mean, but I've been there. I've had a failed marriage, and I wish I could have done the counseling over.
Mm.
Probably wouldn't have got married. That marriage that failed. If I would have had some better pre-marriage counseling, I probably never got married. So hopefully, if you're getting married again, you can get with a pastor or a church ministry that does marriage counseling. We didn't have that.
Mm.
We didn't have it. Nope.
And honestly, we didn't really think about it. Honestly, we
Yeah.
didn't. We didn't know what we didn't know. We always say that we didn't know what we didn't know.
Yep.
We just kind of naively thought that we would just get remarried and things are going to be great. And they were great. I mean, it's been a good marriage,
I
but
think our attitude was, we know what a failed marriage is. We know
yeah.
what we shouldn't do. So we're not going to do that. We're going to make it better. And we had a dedication. We made it through some tough times, and we're still here. We're right here. We're on the top, the hill. We're winning the battle. We're committed to it, but it could have been easier. Could have been a lot easier. Another thing you can do if you don't have church ministry that's going to help you with premarital counseling, seek out another family, somebody that can mentor you. And it don't have to be a blended couple, just some wise people that have been married for a long time and say, can you help us? We want to get married, and we just want somebody to guide us through that process and make sure we're doing the right thing. Or there is a new thing. I don't know, wherever you live, I don't know where you live, but there may be a small group ministry for people getting married again. Maybe seek out something like that. That's something that Lori and I are wanting to do. We're starting with this
Yeah.
YouTube, and maybe in the future we can have our own little small group ministry for in our area for people wanting to get remarried, for blended families. Regardless, try to find counseling, and if you do, bring the kids with you. Maybe start with the two husband and wife to be, the two spouses to be. Do your initial counseling, and then if you're going to proceed, bring the kids. Let the kids sit down and talk about it. Discuss all the things that are going to pertain to the future marriage. That's important because you're not just marrying your new wife or your new husband. You're marrying the kids too. It's all one big package. If you still can't do that, no counseling, no small groups, no ministry, I recommend getting on the Family Life Blended website, Family Life Blended, or you can go to Family Life and there's a tab Family Life Blended under there, and they got great books. You can look at Rondale online. He has a great podcast on YouTube, probably X. I don't know about Instagram, maybe Instagram. The Smart Stepdad, the Smart Stepmom, the Smart Step Family, Preparing to Blend. There's the Smart Family Finances. Smart. There's a bunch of books. But go to Family Life Blended and look up their resources and sit down with your spouse to be and read those books and learn what they're trying to tell you and see how that can work for you. Something we've been wanting to do is the couples ministry, and maybe one day we're going to get to do that. It might just be a one-on-one thing. It might be we have several couples together and sit down in a round around a circle conversation and just talk it over. All right, number 3, take that for us.
Discuss differences in parenting strategies and how this will affect your new blended family after you get married. The husband and wife who came from different families may have had 2 different parenting techniques. Discuss how you're going to deal with the biological parents, i.e., the exes. So, how you want to parent your children. You may have, if one parent's more, I guess, strict and the other one's more permissive, and you got to get that worked out before you get married so that you're on the same. Your kids need to know that you're on the same page on that.
And for us, I didn't have any kids from my previous marriage, and my ex, she went on and married again, and we didn't have a um, hostile relationship, but I, the kids didn't have to worry about any problem with my ex. She didn't have to worry about anything. So the communication issue with my ex was not a factor, but we still had to deal with her ex and the visitations, and I got along with him, and we were cordial. So everything worked out pretty good for us. We had a very relatively easy process. Now, but you may not have that. You may have your ex, and they might get remarried, and she might have her ex, and they might get remarried, and then you got the family over here and the family over there, and you may have more dynamics going on. So there's different dynamics, 67 step family combinations.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll talk about how the kids will talk to each other, address each other, or deal with each other. How will the kids talk to their new parent? You know, even as much as what name you're going to call them.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna call them Dad. You're gonna call them. And the kids always call me. The boys always call me Joe, and I thought that was funny. But and for the most part, we got along good. I think we blended pretty good.
Ron Deal's one thing he says is that don't force
Yeah.
your kids to call, like I didn't force my kids to call him Dad.
Mm-mm.
If that they need to come to that naturally. If they call him Joey, if at some point they wanted to call him Dad, that's up to them. But I shouldn't say you have to call him Dad, because that creates animosity.
Yep. When we're preparing for these videos, we just write down some highlights. And if you're a YouTuber, you probably do the same. But then I think of things. One of the things that we always say is we are not going to talk bad about our exes from the kids. I never tried to talk bad about their dad or their stepmoms or whoever else is involved in his side of the family. I never tried to do that to them.
Mm-hmm.
They never saw that. So and then figure out what are some things that you should do or you shouldn't do. What are the do's and don'ts of the step sibling environment? Do we put them in separate rooms, or if I have a girl and she has a girl, do we put them in the same room? Or if she has a boy and I have a boy, do we put them in the same room? You're obviously not going to put girls and boys together. You all got to work that out. These are the dynamics that you need to sit down and work out before you get married. These are things that you probably don't think about until okay, we're married. What do we do? Um, how can we make this merger of two families work? So that's what you need to talk about.
So when we got married, my boys were 12, 6, and 3. They still had a fairly good relationship with their dad. And I tried to encourage that. I never try to make them hate him or not like him or whatever. Because that would have just made them mad at me. And so I wasn't going to do that. One thing that has happened to us recently that was a good thing, we've been married 13 years, and Joey recently adopted my youngest, who's now 16, and his relationship with his dad had kind of become estranged a little bit. And then, the older they get, they don't see their dad much anyway because, they get in their own lives and jobs. And so the visitation thing just kind of becomes obsolete. So they just kind of see him whenever they want to, whatever. But last few years, our youngest they've kind of talked about him. Joey adopted him, and so we just finally decided to do it. And so that was a good thing.
He kind of pressured me a little bit. We're going to do it. Let's do it. I was like, okay, let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do it.
So now he's Joey's officially his dad, and so he's taking his last name. So we hoping that would just help solidify that relationship, and um,
I think it's pretty neat. It
yeah,
really means something to me.
I think it means something to him too. And he's, not. I also wanted it not getting any younger, and I lost my parents at an early age, and so I wanted to make sure that if anything happened to him, to our youngest, that Joey would have legal rights to do, sign school documents or medical decisions or whatever, in case something happened to me. So it's just a bunch of good reasons why we did that. And mainly it was just, Caden wanted it. And so
Yeah.
we did it. So,
And the oldest boy, he's 25. He's married and got 2 little girls. We just went and saw him.
yeah,
Oh,
we
precious
did.
little girls, the grandbabies. And
Hmm.
he is doing great. We just so we're proud of all of our boys, especially the oldest one. We let him go, and he's out there doing the family
Feeling it.
life.
Out there feeling it.
Yes, yes. Our oldest boy is the example of what you want your kid to be.
Yep.
We're proud of him. And our second boy, he'll be 20 soon. He's going to college. He's going to be an accountant. And I'll be proud of him when he buys me a new Corvette. He's going to be rich and he's going to buy me a new Corvette. So, but no,
I'm getting a
anyway,
Mustang.
yeah, he's a good kid too. He's smart, super smart, good with numbers. We're proud of him. And our youngest boy, and he's doing great too. And he's going to be a nurse. And we're just proud of him. And they're all different in their own way. And I'm just glad, like she said, God forbid anything happens to her, but I don't want him to say, you know what? Well, I got to go back to my dad. No, you stay here, son. This is your house. You stay here as long as you want to. He's got that assurance that he belongs to me no matter what.
Hmm.
Okay, so next on my list is talk about each other's family needs. So I'm gonna marry somebody that's got kids, and she's gonna marry somebody that's got kids. Do they have any health needs? Well, are they allergic to anything? Do you need to change you know what? I need to change my lifestyle
Hmm.
because kids got a peanut butter allergy or something. That's
Yeah.
something you got to talk about.
Yep.
Physical needs. Do they have the disability or something extra special? I don't know.
Hmm.
What do they take medication? Got to get all that stuff worked out. I didn't know what kind of medication their kids take. Same with vice versa.
Hmm.
What kind of school activities on the basketball or dance or choir or band or you got to church activities. You got to get all that stuff figured out. You got to discuss that stuff. You can't just start and say, okay, what are we going to do about this? What are we going to do about that? I don't know. You should have discussed that before. Get that stuff worked out before you get married.
Hmm.
I already have a plan. Anything else to add to that?
I don't think so.
All right.
So talk about the extended family issues. Talk
Yeah.
about visitation with their biological parents, family outings with biological parents. Discuss future interactions with your step parents' families. One weekend, the kids may be going to their father's family's outings. And our divorce decree was set up. We were told we could pretty much do what we wanted, but if we couldn't make a decision or we couldn't agree on something, we had to do whatever the divorce paper said. But we didn't do exactly what the divorce paper said because we agreed and we did what worked best for our schedules. And so we ended up doing kind of like the every other weekend thing and a couple days during the week, and then the um, yearly holidays and stuff. Sometimes we would go by the divorce decree, which, like, I think we had them odd years and they had them even years, or something like that. Sometimes we would just say, "Hey, they're doing their family Christmas, the day before Christmas or a couple of days before Christmas, so that's fine. They can go do that." And then they would be there for Christmas. So we worked on that pretty
We all
well.
made it work.
We always made it
We
work.
always made it work, no matter what.
And if not, if you can't make it work, then you just have to go by what the
Right.
divorce decree says.
Right.
I mean, either way, you've got a plan either way. But it's always better to try to be friendly and agreeable and work together on things. Your kids don't need to see you arguing and fighting and not getting along.
Mhm.
So, um, all these things cause stressors for kids and parents. Didn't exist before the marriage, so your kids don't need to see you fussing and fighting over and just being petty.
Yeah.
As a teacher, sometimes I see parents being so petty, and they won't even come to a parent conference together because they
Yeah.
can't get along for 10 minutes. I got to have separate conferences for dad, one conference for dad and a different one for mom, because they can't sit down for 10 minutes and be civilized people for the
Yeah.
sake of their children. So don't don't be spiteful. Be agreeable and just, work things out the best that you can so that your kids aren't suffering because you're just wanting to be um, spiteful. I keep using that word, but I just see it so much as a teacher. I always tried to do, if he asked me to switch weekends or something, I always, unless we had something specific going on and we just couldn't switch, we were always willing to switch. And, if they had a little vacation or a family get together or something they wanted to do, and they're, hey, we want to do this weekend. Can we just switch weekends? Yeah, So
And he was good about doing that with us too.
yeah, he was good about doing that with us too.
Really good. And you can't just say, well, uh, they want to change this weekend because their family get together got changed. Well, we're going out to a movie, and by golly, they're going to the movie with us. I don't do that. Just
Yeah.
work it out. Work it out. The kids can be like, they're gonna be all stressed out, and it causes trauma and emotional trauma and depression and anxiety and that kind of stuff. If you can't work out your differences between your exes and the extended families, that could affect your kids. It could have detrimental effect on your kids.
And it could lead them to resent you.
Yes. Yes.
And you don't want that.
Yep. Okay. Finances. So one of the things that people don't think about a lot before they get married is finances. She has her bills. I got my bills. Her kids have financial needs. I have financial needs. We got insurance, car payments, and this and that.
Child support.
What about getting rid of her house or my house or all the different things? Life insurance, savings, retirement. So much stuff to talk about. Budget. Well, I was in the Air Force, and the Air Force treated me good. The Air Force treated me very well. So while I was in the Air Force, I was able to, because when we got married, I was kind of up there in the rank. I was able to pay all the bills, and her money kind of just um, supported, supplemented. But then the economy got bad, and I retired from the Air Force, and the job I got now is good, but the economy is so bad that we eventually combined our finances, and we had to create a budget that put everything in it. So I think it might be a good idea up front to make a budget up front. So if something ever happens that you have to switch, oh man, what's your bills? 10 years later, what kind of bills do you have? And it's something you should know up front. Finances. Anything else on that?
Well, he was, like you said, he was good about when we first got married. He was like, I'll pay the bills. You just use your school check to take care of the boys. And, at the time they were younger, so they were into sports and they were, I got school pictures and field trips and doctor visits and all that stuff. And so he was like, you just use your paycheck to take care of their needs and I'll pay the bills. And, and then, so that worked really well for a while until we, had to put it together, but still he's good about making sure everything gets paid and gives me a little spending money to do. So, but the boys are, like we said, they're older, so we're not having to do all the financial stuff for them like we used to.
But don't talk about it, and it's going to get you. It's going to jump up on you and surprise you. You think, oh man, we're in financial trouble, but we didn't sit down and talk about it. Okay, next, number 7. How about you talk about that?
Discuss any other concerns you may have before you get married. So, do you need a bigger house? Do you have adequate vehicles for transportation? For those of you that may have been divorced and are getting married again, 2 things. So, talk about your faith.
Yeah. Let me talk about that. So, talk about your faith. Number one, we said it before in other videos. You have the same faith. We hope you're followers of Jesus Christ. So she's Pentecostal and I'm Baptist. You got to work that out. You got to work it out.
Yep.
You got to work it out. You need to work that out before you get married. Work your faith out before you get married.
And I've said this before in other videos. I was raised, my dad was Catholic and my mom was Baptist. And when they got married, she had to convert to Catholicism before they would even be allowed to get married in the Catholic Church. I don't know if it's still like that nowadays, but So that was something, if that's going to be a problem for you, then you need to get that figured out, before you get married. So,
Yep. And then okay, say we're the same faith. She's Baptist, I'm Baptist, same type of Baptist churches. I know there's 200 Baptist brands out there, but we're the same Baptist brand and flavor and whatever.
yeah.
So say we go to two different churches. You need to work that out. You need to say what church is going to suit our needs best. You can't go to one church Sunday and the next church Sunday. You can't. I mean, I guess you physically could, but it wouldn't benefit you to go to different churches. And it could be that you might just need to find a brand new church altogether.
hmm Which is what I think we ended up doing when we
Yeah.
got remarried. Is the church
And
we were going to?
nothing against the
Yeah,
last church. Nothing against the last churches. We just need a new start.
we need a new start. Yeah, and so we just ended up going to a completely new church, and
The church we went to before was a great church. We just needed a new start.
Yep.
And then we had another start.
yeah,
But anyway, and some we talked about. So don't let your faith hinder your marriage. And there's two things that I see about this faith part is people get married and one of the spouses don't go to church. They stay home. Or they don't go to church at all. They say, well, we can't figure it out, so we're just not going to go to church for a while. And so going to church, their faith declines.
hmm
So don't do that. Talk about it before it happens. And then finally, the last thing we're going to talk about is your marriage is ordained by God, whether it's your second time or, God forbid, even your third time. Your marriage is ordained by God. I know nobody wants to get divorced. We didn't want to get divorced. We do not promote getting divorced. We will make that up front. If you watch any of our videos, we have a video on divorce. We do not promote or encourage divorce. We
we
actually
don't take it lightly.
discourage it. We don't take it lightly.
hmm
We, both of us, have tried every avenue to prevent our divorce. And it got to the point where it was unpreventable.
hmm
And I know what you're going to say. There's no such thing. Well, there is. There is such a thing as the unpreventable.
Yep.
Go back and watch our video about divorce. We talk more about that. I'm not going to do that here. So you're past that. You're getting married again. Just want you to know your marriage is honored and ordained. It's a covenant ordained by God. You should treat it as such.
hmm
Like I said earlier, you're going to put Christ ahead of the marriage, and Christ is going to go first, and then the marriage, the husband, the wife, and then the kids. If you're not ready to do that, if you don't think that you can put Christ first, and if there's any red flags, no matter what it is, if you think, you know what, there's something I'm not sure about between us or the kids or the families or whatever, there's a red flag. Either you can postpone the wedding or just don't do it. Because if you go into marriage not completely committed, there's a likelihood that it's not going to work and you might get divorced again.
hmm
So don't do that. Go into the marriage with the understanding that God wants his marriage to last. Death do part.
hmm
Like it says in Genesis chapter 2, the two flesh becoming one.
hmm
That union that's ordained by God. And then finally, like I kind of talked about that, divorce is not the answer. It doesn't have to be the answer. And it's something Ron Deal says in his Family Life Blending podcast and books is once you've been divorced and remarried, the likelihood of divorce increases. As a matter of fact, if you look at divorce rates, the divorce rate goes up in marriages that have been the second or third times. So first time marriages, their divorce rate is lower than second time marriages. And the second time marriage divorce rate is probably lower than third time marriages.
hmm
So once you've been divorced, you think, well, if it don't work, I can do it again. That's not the answer. You get remarried, that should be your marriage for life, honored by God, a covenant between you and God. That's right. Um, and that's it. Anything else to add? And I got one more thing, but anything else to add to all this?
I don't think so.
So you've done all these things we talked about. You're good to go. You're confident. We're going to do it. You got the wedding date. You got the license, and you paid the fee. You got the preacher and the date, and we got married at her sister's house. This is pretty cool. So if you have kids, here's what I suggest. Get them involved. Don't let them out there in the seats. Okay, kids, just be quiet. We're getting married. Be quiet and throw the rice when you're done, and we'll get cake and ice cream and whatever later. Put your kids in the wedding. Make them your bridesmaids or your groomsman or the flower. If they're little kids, they can be the flower girl or the ring bearer. Or give your kids a part in the wedding. And I gave my boys a gift, and they held candles, and we did
We did the sand.
the sand. Yeah, we had blue and white sand, and we mixed it together. Blended family.
And since he was in the military, we got him dog tags.
Yeah, dog tags.
And they had their names on them, and
yeah, that was
he
cool.
presented the dog tags to him
Mhm.
during the ceremony, and
And that meant
good.
something to them. It made them feel they were part of this. Make your kids feel like they're part of this. Anything else?
I don't think so.
Okay, so next video is going to be our last one in this series. So we talked about you got divorced in the first, and now you're single again. What should you do? If you haven't seen those, go back and watch it. And then last week we talked about dating. You're ready to date. You're dating again. So what are some things you need to consider before you start dating? Today we talked about you're ready. You want to get married. So what should I know before I get married? So next week you've been married. The marriage is done. You're a blended family. How do I make this work? We're going to talk about that next week. How do you make this blended family work? And how do you make this honor God? So that's it. We hope you like us. Give it a thumb up and then subscribe. And tell us what you think. Tell us what you think. Do you like this? Do you not? If there's anything else you want us to address, let us know and we'll address it. So thank you and God bless.